So let's understand a very important file in Kubernetes. So this is your client-side file, which is called as kubeconfig file. So this is a client-side configuration file, and what is its purpose? So its purpose is basically to first identify the cluster, the user, okay, and which is the current context. When I say current context, basically which cluster and user to be used, okay, to connect to the Kubernetes cluster. So this is the configuration file, which your kubectl, which is your client-side command tool, okay. So this kubectl is going to use this kube configuration file. It's just a configuration information about your cluster. So you might have multiple clusters, Kubernetes cluster, right? So say one I have installed on Docker desktop, that is on my local machine. Say I have also created a cluster on Amazon AWS, okay, on AWS EKS. Maybe I have created another cluster on Azure, okay. So there might be multiple clusters, and from your same machine, if you are trying to access the multiple clusters, then how are you going to do it? So all this information is present in this kube config. You just understand it. It can have information about multiple Kubernetes cluster, and the default context is decided using this current context information. So this is the high level information about the kubeconfig. Now let's understand what all things kubeconfig has. Okay, first of all, I'll show you where it is created. Okay, on your local machine. So if you go to see users and then whatever is your username, and in that you will see .kube file, kube .kube file, and in this there is a config file here. Okay, now, so these are the information basically the kube config have. One is the clusters. So like I told you, I might have multiple Kubernetes clusters. So here you can see that I have a dev cluster and prod cluster. So all the both the clusters information would be present in the kube config file. I can switch the context basically. Say I want to connect to dev cluster, then I'll change the context, my context to dev cluster. If I want to connect to prod cluster, I'll change my context to prod cluster. So this is how you can choose. Then plus it has the information about the users. So and how users are authenticated. It can be certificates, it could be tokens, or it could be plugin, etc. So all this information is present in the kube config. So how the authentication is going to take place, all this information is present in the kube config. And then the third one is the context. So basically what context will have, it will have the information of cluster and the user. And there is also an optional namespace. In Kubernetes, there is a concept called as namespace. Okay, so you can have that default namespace also that you want to connect. So this is how the things will combine together. Say I have this dev context. Okay, in the dev context, basically what would be my cluster? Dev cluster. User would be dev user, and say namespace is development. Prod context, when I choose prod context, then it will be prod cluster, prod user, and production. Okay, so this all information is present in the kube config file. And if you look here, so this is the kube config file. You see here, you can see name is Docker desktop. Okay, this is one of the context, and this is information about the user, and the way it is connecting to Docker desktop is using the client certificate data, so and client key data. And in case of EKS, it is using the API version, then it is running some commands, etc. So it has all this information. So in case of EKS, it is a bit different. So and then we have the context, and in context we have cluster, user, and name. And like I told you, we have these three sections. One is the clusters. So say this is my cluster one. Okay, and cluster one's name is this one, pharma EKS cluster. Then say my cluster two is the second cluster. Yeah, I'm also storing the API URL of the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so this is under server, and the name is also present here to identify the cluster. So these are my cluster, and then we have context here. So in the context, you have all this information: cluster, user, and name, and it also has the information about the current context. Okay, so by default, which Kubernetes cluster I'm going to connect. So this is understood from this particular current context. And then we have this config information, which has information about users and how are they going to connect to a particular Kubernetes cluster. So this is all about your uh, kubeconfig file. Now let's run some commands around it. Kubectl config view. There it will give me all this information. So what we have seen in the kubeconfig file. The same kind of information is coming out of this command as well. And if you do raw, basically the complete information, whatever you are seeing in the kubeconfig file, that will be coming out. Get the current context. Okay. When I say current context, basically my default Kubernetes cluster. It is giving me Docker desktop. Say I want to get all the say I want to get all the context. So on kubectl config, and then I'll do get context. So this all information is coming from the kubectl config file, the kubeconfig file, which you have already seen, right? And here you can see when I do get context. Okay, so in the get context, the Docker desktop is marked as with star. Star means the default, or you could say the current context. And the other ones are actually the other possible cluster that I can connect to. So now I want to switch the context. Okay, then I can use this command, and if I do this, see that it is telling me that I have switched to. And if I do the get context now, see the star has moved from Docker desktop to this current context. Okay, and now if I do the current context, then it will show PharmaClick EKS cluster. And now if I want to switch it back again, I need to use context and then the name of this. And if I get the current context again, it is changed to Docker desktop. So this was all about the kube config and the certain config commands. Hope you would like this video. Thank you so much. Have a good day.